5 college students, 5 ordinary days that turned into lifelong mysteries. A freshman who vanished while walking across campus, a young woman who disappeared after a night out, a student who never made it back to her dorm, a graduate whose car washed ashore, and a classmate who went missing during a school trip. Different stories, one haunting question: how do people vanish in plain sight? In this video, we uncover 5 college students who vanished without a trace. Story 1. A shy, brilliant college student walking home from her shift, a campus bus ride that should have taken only minutes, and a disappearance that would change how an entire country responds when someone goes missing. On a chilly night in March 1998, 19-year-old Suzanne "Suzy" Lyall stepped off a campus bus near her dorm at the University at Albany. And then, she was simply gone. No struggle, no witnesses, no clear trail. Just a quiet walk across campus, and a mystery that has haunted New York for more than 25 years. Suzanne Lyall was the youngest of 3 children, shy, thoughtful, and deeply creative. She loved computers, science fiction, and the band Rush, whose lyrics she scribbled into her notebooks. She always followed routines. She always showed up, and she wasn't the type of person who would suddenly disappear. By 1998, she was studying computer science at the University at Albany while working at Babbage's, a computer store at Crossgates Mall. Her days were predictable, structured, and centered around school and work. Nothing suggested she was preparing to walk away from her life. March 2nd began like any ordinary Monday. Classes, a late shift at work, and the regular bus ride back to campus. Around 9 p.m., she clocked out, caught the mall bus, and transferred to the campus bus that stopped near her dorm on the Colonial Quad. A fellow student later remembered seeing her step off at about 9:45 p.m. From there, all she had left was a short walk, a familiar, well-lit path used constantly by other students. But Suzy never made it to her room. The next morning, she didn't show up for class, she didn't show up for work, and she didn't contact anyone. Her co-workers were worried, her friends were worried, and her parents, who hadn't heard from her overnight, felt something was wrong. By that afternoon, campus security discovered something unusual. Suzy's bank card had been used at an ATM around 4 a.m. The footage was poor. The person at the machine couldn't be identified, and investigators didn't know if they were watching Suzy or someone who had taken her card. That ATM withdrawal became one of the most debated clues in the entire case. Search teams combed the campus. No signs of a struggle, no dropped belongings, no indication she wandered off on her own. It was as if she stepped into the night, walked between 2 points less than 100 yards apart, and vanished in the middle of a crowded college campus. Investigators briefly considered whether Suzy had left on her own, but her family quickly dismissed the idea. She left behind money, personal items, and schoolwork she cared deeply about. Nothing in her life hinted at a voluntary disappearance. This shifted investigators toward another possibility: a fast, opportunistic encounter. Someone could have pulled up in a vehicle. Someone could have been watching the bus route, or someone Suzy knew could have approached her. Her boyfriend was questioned, co-workers were interviewed, classmates were reviewed, but no one was ever officially named a suspect, and no solid lead ever emerged. The trail went cold almost immediately. Over the years, Suzy's family pushed tirelessly for answers. Their advocacy helped create Suzanne's Law, expanding how missing person cases involving young adults are handled across the United States. But even with national attention, the questions surrounding her disappearance remain painfully open. Did Suzy cross paths with someone who had been following her? Was she approached by someone she thought she could trust, or did she unknowingly encounter the wrong person in those final minutes? And what about that ATM withdrawal at 4 a.m.? Was she still alive at that hour, or was someone else using her card, deliberately trying to mislead investigators? Suzanne Lyall stepped off a campus bus, walked down a familiar path, and vanished without a sound. For her family, for investigators, and for everyone who has followed her case, one question still lingers. How can someone disappear in one of the busiest parts of a college campus, with no one seeing anything at all? Story 2. A bright 20-year-old college student walks into the early morning darkness and then disappears without a trace. A night out with friends, a college town full of cameras and witnesses, yet not a single confirmed sighting after 4:30 a.m. A case filled with conflicting statements, missing pieces, and a timeline examined for more than a decade. This is the story of Lauren Spierer and the unanswered questions that continue to haunt everyone who knew her. Lauren Elizabeth Spierer was born on January 17, 1991, in Scarsdale, New York. She grew up in an active, supportive family, a good student, kind-hearted, and driven. After graduating from Edgemont High School in 2009, she left New York to study textiles merchandising at Indiana University. Lauren wasn't alone when she arrived at IU. Many of the people who would later become central to the investigation were longtime friends, people she met at Camp Towanda, a summer camp in Pennsylvania. Her boyfriend, Jesse Wolfe, and close friend Jay Rosenbaum were among them. By 2011, Lauren had formed a tight-knit circle on campus, balancing school, friendships, and the independence of college life. But everything changed during the early hours of June 3rd. That night, Lauren and a friend headed to Kilroy's bar. She appeared intoxicated and left behind her shoes and phone on the bar's outdoor patio, an early sign the night was unraveling. Around 2 a.m., she walked with friends to an apartment complex nearby. Between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m., Lauren moved between several apartments, unsteady at times, needing occasional support. At 2:51 a.m., surveillance cameras recorded her walking outside. She looked small, off balance, and vulnerable. She eventually arrived at the apartment of Jay Rosenbaum, someone she had known for years. Jay later stated that Lauren stayed briefly before saying she wanted to go home. Around 4:30 a.m., Jay claimed he last saw her walking south, barefoot, without her phone, heading toward her apartment. It is the final confirmed sighting of Lauren Spierer. When morning came and Lauren wasn't home, Jesse grew worried. Friends searched the route she might have taken, called hospitals, and contacted police. What followed was one of the largest investigations Bloomington had ever seen. Search teams covered ponds, ravines, wooded areas, construction sites, dogs, drones, hundreds of volunteers, but not a single trace of Lauren was ever found. Lauren had a known heart condition and was heavily intoxicated that night. One theory suggests she may have collapsed somewhere out of view, but after extensive searches, no evidence supported this. Another theory suggests an accidental overdose and that someone panicked. Some friends involved with Lauren that night obtained legal counsel early and declined to continue speaking with investigators. This fueled speculation, but again, no direct evidence has ever been found. Others believe Lauren encountered someone while walking home, but Bloomington, despite being a busy college town, offered no surveillance footage of such an encounter. No witnesses came forward. No vehicle was ever linked to the case. Another possibility is that Lauren's impaired state made her vulnerable to someone passing by. But without proof, the theory remains uncertain. For more than a decade, Lauren's family has searched for answers. They have fought tirelessly to keep her story alive, refusing to let her be forgotten. And yet, the central question remains: how can a young woman vanish in a populated college town, surrounded by cameras, lights, and people, without leaving behind a single trace? Was Lauren's disappearance a tragic accident, or does someone still hold answers they've never fully shared? Story 3. May 25, 1996. A warm spring night at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. 19-year-old Kristin Smart leaves a college party just a short walk from her dorm. She never makes it back. A missing student on a crowded campus. A walk that should have taken less than 10 minutes. And one student who was the last person seen with her. A person whose actions would be questioned for decades. Kristin Denise Smart was born on February 20th, 1977. Outgoing, athletic, and full of ambition, she dreamed of becoming an architect or even a professional athlete. By 1996, she was finishing her freshman year at Cal Poly, adjusting to campus life, new friends, and the independence of college. On the evening of May 24th, 1996, Kristin headed to an off-campus party at 135 Crandall Way. It was Memorial Day weekend. Many students were gone, but enough remained to fill the small house. Kristin arrived without her purse, wallet, or ID. Several witnesses later said she had been drinking and was unsteady by the end of the night. Around 2 a.m., Kristin was ready to head back to her dorm. Two students, Cheryl Anderson and Tim Davis, offered to walk with her, a short route that normally took less than 10 minutes. Along the way, another student, Paul Flores, joined the group. He walked closest to Kristin, supporting her at moments when she stumbled. As they neared the dorms, Cheryl and Tim split off. Kristin was left alone with Paul. He told them he would walk her the rest of the way to Muir Hall. It is the last time anyone other than Paul saw Kristin alive. The next morning, Kristin missed her surf class. Then she missed a planned weekend trip. And by Monday, when she didn't call home, something she always did, her parents felt a deep sense of worry. But campus police believed she had simply gone away for the holiday weekend. Almost 30 critical hours were lost. When investigators finally entered Kristin's room, her belongings were untouched. She had not slept in her bed. Search dogs brought to the dorms alerted near Paul Flores' room, further raising questions. But no physical evidence was recovered. Kristin was declared missing, and the case soon shifted into a homicide investigation. For years, Paul Flores remained the primary person of interest. He reportedly had an injury near his eye after the night Kristin vanished and gave inconsistent explanations for it. Witness statements described unusual behavior, and search dogs repeatedly showed reactions around locations connected to him. In 2021, Paul Flores was arrested and later convicted in connection with Kristin's disappearance. But despite the conviction, Kristin has never been found. Investigators long believed she may have been hidden somewhere on or near campus, possibly moved later. Multiple searches, excavations, and ground-penetrating radar efforts were conducted, but no confirmed remains were located. Some quietly questioned whether someone else encountered Kristin after the group separated, but no evidence has ever supported another suspect. Nearly 3 decades later, Kristin's family still waits for one thing: answers. If someone knows where she is, why has that information never been revealed? After all the searches, all the interviews, all the years, where is Kristin Smart? And what truly happened in those final minutes of that walk home? Story 4, June 1988. A cold winter night in Perth, Western Australia. A 22-year-old university student leaves a staff celebration at one of the city's busiest hotels and vanishes without a trace 2 days later. Her car is found floating upside down in the ocean. headlights still glowing through the waves, keys still in the ignition, and mysterious items inside that only deepened the questions. No witnesses, no sign of an accident, and no explanation for how her vehicle ended up in the surf. More than 3 decades later, the disappearance of Julie Cutler remains one of Australia's most haunting mysteries. Julie Leanne Cutler was 22, petite, with dark brown hair and striking green eyes. Friends described her as artistic, outgoing, and thoughtful, someone who loved books, writing, and lively conversations. She lived in Fremantle with a flatmate, worked as a room attendant at the Parmelia Hilton Hotel, and studied English literature and theater arts at WAIT, now Curtin University. Julie was responsible, focused, and saving money to travel after graduation. She had plans, and she kept to them. Sunday, June 19th, 1988. Julie finished her shift at the Hilton and attended a staff awards night inside Juliana's nightclub. Nearly 200 co-workers were present. She wore a black evening dress with a high collar, gold shoulder buttons, and black patent leather shoes. Around 12:30 a.m., as the event began to wind down, a female colleague walked Julie to her car, a two-tone gray 1963 Fiat sedan parked in the staff car park. The colleague recalled seeing Julie bend into the front passenger seat before getting in. Moments later, Julie drove out of the car park, turning left onto Mounts Bay Road. This route would have taken her toward the city, across the river, and then home to Fremantle, but she never arrived. Julie didn't show up for her shift later that day, something completely out of character. Her flatmate reported her missing the next morning. Wednesday, June 22nd. Around 11:45 a.m., a swimmer spotted a vehicle floating upside down near the groin at Cottesloe Beach. It was Julie's Fiat. The discovery stunned investigators. The car was half buried in sand, its headlights still on, and the keys still in the ignition. Inside were 4 champagne flutes from the Hilton and cigarette butts that weren't her usual brand. Julie's father, Roger, immediately dismissed the idea that she had driven into the water intentionally. The scene simply didn't make sense. There were no skid marks, no gouges in the road, no broken fencing, no footprints around the area. The beach gave nothing away. Some suggested Julie may have taken a wrong turn or become disoriented after the event. But experts noted the path into the water is difficult, and the lack of damage to the Fiat made an accidental drive into the surf seem unlikely. The champagne flutes, the unfamiliar cigarette butts, these items fueled suspicion. Did someone get into the car with Julie? Was she forced to drive somewhere she never intended to go? And did the car enter the ocean hours or even days after Julie disappeared? Investigators have long considered this possibility. Julie left the hotel late at night, alone, in a dimly lit area. Police have acknowledged the chance she encountered someone she knew, or someone watching. Given the time and location, the possibility of a random predator has also remained on the table, but with no evidence recovered from the vehicle and no trace found on the beach, nothing definitive has ever emerged. More than 35 years later, the mystery still lingers. Did Julie leave the hotel alone that night? Was someone waiting for her outside? And how did her car end up in the ocean, intact, headlights glowing beneath the surf? What do you believe truly happened? Story 5. It was supposed to be a simple college trip. A model United Nations conference hosted at a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago. Hundreds of students, dozens of faculty members, a city lit up by traffic, noise, and security cameras on nearly every corner. In a place that never sleeps, no one expected anything unusual. But at 2:30 in the morning, a 19-year-old walked out of the Sheraton Chicago hotel and vanished within seconds. No struggle, no sound, no trace. How does someone disappear in the middle of a major city, surrounded by cameras and people? This is one of the most haunting urban vanishings of the 2000s. Jesse Warren Ross from Kansas City, Missouri, was a sophomore at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Friends described him as witty, warm, and full of energy, the kind of person everyone gravitated toward. He dreamed of working in media production and loved making short comedy videos with his friends. In November 2006, Jesse traveled with his university group to Chicago for a week-long Model UN conference. The event was held at the Sheraton Chicago Hotel and Towers, a massive, bustling hotel overlooking the Chicago River. On November 21st, around 2 a.m., Jesse and other students attended a late-night mock emergency meeting. The atmosphere was relaxed, students joking around, sipping sodas, unwinding after a long day of sessions. At 2:30 a.m., the meeting ended. Students began heading back to their rooms. Jesse walked into the hallway wearing jeans, a green long-sleeved shirt, and a black coat. He told friends he'd catch up with them shortly. Security footage captured him leaving the conference room, walking toward the hotel's exit, and that was the last confirmed sighting. He never returned to his room. He never contacted anyone. He never boarded the bus home. By 4 a.m., university staff realized something was wrong. Police were called soon after. Within hours, the search expanded across the hotel grounds, the Riverwalk, nearby streets, and the Chicago River itself. But there were no footprints, no witnesses, no signs of a struggle, and no surveillance footage showing where Jesse went next. It was as if he stepped into the early morning air and disappeared into it. Because the hotel sits directly beside the river, authorities first considered the possibility of an accidental fall. It was cold, dark, quiet, but multiple searches, sonar scans, divers, boats, found nothing. Despite strong currents, experts said some trace would likely appear. None ever did. At the time, several maintenance and construction areas surrounded the hotel. Investigators explored the theory that Jesse may have wandered into a poorly lit zone and suffered a fatal accident. Again, no evidence supported this. Police briefly considered whether Jesse chose to disappear, but he had no history of running away, no signs of distress, and he left behind all his belongings. His wallet, clothes, personal items. His family firmly rejects this theory. Some investigators believe foul play cannot be ruled out. Chicago's streets were not empty at that hour. If Jesse encountered the wrong person, it may have happened quickly, quietly, and outside the view of security cameras. Yet no one came forward. No one reported anything unusual. And to this day, not a single piece of physical evidence has ever been found. No phone, no clothing, no remains, nothing. How does a young man disappear in one of the most populated cities in America without leaving behind a trace? And with Jesse's case, we close this chapter of unexplained vanishings. These stories remind us that even in crowded places, people can simply disappear. The next disappearances may be even stranger.